Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you here today on our Total Wellness Tuesday episode here of the Cabral Concept. Excited to go over why fasting reduces bloating and digestive issues. I'm also going to go through how many hours between each meal you should not be eating, that you take a break from eating, take a break from snacking, and then also what the main reasons are for a lot of that bloating and gas as well, and how an intermittent fast actually benefits you. So I think some of the answers may be a bit surprising. We're going to go over here, my buddy Walter, and all of the help that he can show us through the intestinal tract. So if you're not watching this on video, head on over to stephencabral.com/2090, or of course, you can watch this right on YouTube as well. So the first thing that we want to do is really go over how fasting affects the digestive system, why it will improve it, but we need to know how the digestive system works in the first place. So believe it or not, there's actually a certain amount of time that each food takes in order to move through the stomach into the intestines. And once you know that part, you're already going to be so far ahead of the curve. So let's get into first exactly how the digestive system works, and then we're going to go through how to use intermittent fasting to boost your digestive benefits and reduce bloating and gas throughout the day and overnight as well. All right, let's get started. So when we're looking at the digestive tract, I have my buddy Walter right here. And what I wanted to show you is that as we eat, so as we're consuming food in the mouth, the food has to travel down. Let me take off his lungs right here. If you're watching this on video, if you're not watching a video, you can follow along at stephencabral.com/2090 or right on YouTube at my name, Stephen Cabral. So as we eat food, it's going to be swallowed down into the esophagus, that tube that's about 12 inches to 16 inches or so for most people. And then it's going to come right into the stomach. The esophagus is right behind this trachea right here. You can't see it on this particular doll mannequin, but it's going to go right into our stomach. So what happens is when it goes into the stomach, it's going to sit there for anywhere between 30 minutes and about 3 hours or so, sometimes even longer. You might say, well, why 30 minutes sometimes, and why an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours or more? Well, it has to do with the type of food. So the simpler the food is to digest and break down, the faster it moves through the digestive tract. So if we think about it, the simplest foods to break down for the human body is essentially fruit. Fruit is about 90% water to start. It can vary, of course, anywhere from the 80% to low 90s. And I've done that on particular shows as well on hydration. We'll try to see if we can link one up on the hydration levels of fruit. Just head on over to stephencabral.com/2090 for all of the links today. So what happens is the food will stay in the stomach for about 30 minutes for fruit. When we chew it up well with our teeth, we're breaking down the cell walls. It's releasing the natural enzymes if the fruit is raw or it's been blended. And then we put it in our stomach, it breaks it down fairly quickly, and it's in and out of the stomach in 30 to 60 minutes or so. So that's an easy example of food that moves through the stomach in about 30 minutes to 60 minutes. The next would be a light starch. So a starch would be maybe sweet potatoes. It might be yams. It could be something like starchy vegetables like carrots or beets or something to that nature. It could even be some lighter grains. Oatmeal will tend to digest, or any, let's even say you're doing rice-based pasta, will digest in about an hour or so through the stomach, maybe just a little bit longer, depending on what you mix with that oatmeal or with the pasta, right? If you start to add more fat, it's a different story. After that, we have light proteins can easily be broken down with other vegetables in about an hour to 90 minutes. That would be things like fish or eggs. Pretty simple, pretty easy to digest. And then we get more towards meat. And meat like chicken or easier to digest meats of that nature would take about 2 hours or so. And then red meat or harder to break down meats would be 3+ hours. It doesn't mean that any of these foods are better than any other foods. What I'm saying today is there's different ways and times of breaking them down. It has to do with of course, it has to do with how well you chew. That's a big thing. So you always want to chew it to a paste in your mouth before swallowing so that your digestive system, your stomach, has less work to do. That is the goal, because then it will take less energy from your body. So the other thing that takes a long time to break down is a lot of raw vegetables or salads. Again, I'm not saying that raw vegetables or salads are bad, but what it's going to take is quite some time to break those down. I'm going to link up my previous show on food combining. It doesn't mean that you can't combine certain foods, but what it does is it shares with you why a lot of these foods take longer to break down and how to layer them into your meals. So it's called food layering, and it's why a lot of Europeans, my family included, grew up eating salad at the end of the meal, and we still do. So when you look at this, you can start to say, okay, this is how long foods take to break down and move through the digestive system. So your average individual, if you see right here, the stomach's going to lead into this squiggly part right here. So this is your small intestine. Your small intestine is about 21 feet or so, depending on the height of the individual. And then it leads from the ileum to the cecum in this large intestine right here. Your appendix is right below. And this large intestine is about 5 to 6 feet, also known as your colon. And then it moves directly out of the body through the anus during a bowel movement. So when we look at the entire digestive system, we're looking at somewhere around 26, 28 feet or so. And this is the way that the food moves through the body, and that typically takes somewhere between 12 and 36 hours, with the typical standard being about 24 hours after you eat. The waste from that meal is being removed from your body with a whole lot of bacteria as well that comes from the intestines. So our job then is to understand, okay, that's what normal digestion looks like. Normal bowel movements would be 1 to 3 bowel movements per day, about 24 hours after each individual meal. If you want to look at it that way, it doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to have 3 bowel movements per day, but about 1 to 3 per day. Please do not listen to any medical doctor or anyone that says having a bowel movement once every 4 or 5 days or even once a week is normal, and everyone has their own normal schedule. That is nothing about having a bowel movement once every 4 or 5 days is normal. That is absolutely constipation. And that means that you most likely have some serious digestive imbalances that can be corrected. That's the good news. But you are most likely fermenting a lot of bacteria and yeast inside of those intestines. And we will be talking about that. The other bad part is that a lot of those bacteria can actually be absorbed into the body. And what's even worse is that your body uses your bowel movements as the main way to get toxins out of the body, because those toxins get broken down by the liver, mix in with the bile. The bile drops down into your small intestine and gets moved all the way through the intestines for the waste, and that goes out of your body. So if you're not having at least 1 bowel movement per day, then you're absolutely building up toxic levels of estrogen, toxic levels of whatever it might be, plastics, environmental toxins from the body. So you definitely want to look at that. You absolutely want to correct any level of constipation you have. We'll get to that in just a minute, but just make sure that you are having at least 1 bowel movement per day. So let's now move into, there's all this talk about intermittent fasting, and why does fasting help a lot of people with digestive-based issues? Well, there's really 2 main reasons. One I've definitely spoken about before, so I'll try to link it up for you here today on episode 2090. And that is, so there's one main reason, and then I'm going to get to the second. It's the second part of the show. So the first one is this, is that most people who feel better eating than not eating have a buildup of either H. pylori, which is a bacterial infection, Candida overgrowth, which is a yeast overgrowth, or SIBO, which is a bacterial overgrowth. So when they're not eating, those yeast and bacteria are not getting new food to fuel themselves, where they then begin to give off gas, hydrogen gas, methane gas, and cause bloating. But that is not the reason that you want to be doing intermittent fasting. It's a good reason, there's no doubt about it, but that has an underlying root cause. So you definitely want a lab test for that. You definitely want to get on a protocol, a natural health-based protocol to repair that. The lab, there's three main labs that I recommend. They're all at stevencabral.com/labs. The main lab, if you were to only run one, if you're dealing with a lot of like bloating and digestive issues, is the bacteria and parasite lab. The second one is the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. And the third would be the food sensitivity. You can purchase them all as a bundle as well. They all come with a health coaching consultation to read your results, and they come with a plan to help you rebalance your body. So that's a definite. That I definitely recommend. However, let's get into the second reason. One that most people aren't talking about. Why does fasting reduce bloating and digestive issues? One of the reasons is that a lot of people have slow bowel motility. And let me explain exactly what that is. So bowel motility is how quickly the food is moved through this 21 feet or so of small intestine, and then how quickly it's moved through the large intestine to come out of the body as a bowel movement. So bowel motility is that speed of what's called intersecession, of where the bowels almost slinky along to move the waste out of your body. So a lot of people, mainly due to stress, have slow bowel motility. I've shared with you before that everyone that we work with digestive issues, parasites, H. pylori, Candida overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, food sensitivities, etc., can get well. There's no doubt about it. The only people that relapse, going back to IBS or IBD, are those people we've seen with high levels of emotional-based stress. And here's why. When you have high levels of emotional stress, the peristaltic movement, right, that intersecession of the intestines can often stop. Just completely stop, and it allows for that waste to build up. So now the only way that it's moving now is it's literally becoming impacted, and more waste is just pushing it along manually. You don't want that. That leads to massive constipation. The second issue is with loose stool. So that stress innervates certain nerves in the digestive system that causes someone to have loose stool or diarrhea. But it's still a form of constipation, believe it or not, because it's not a full bowel movement. They're actually just excreting the inside portion of the colon where fecal matter is still impacted along the sides. That's not good either. Now, the third part is with this stress, it causes ileocecal valve dysfunction, which I've spoken about before. This is where the small intestine is supposed to, and you can actually see it here if you're watching this on video, this is where the small intestine feeds the waste into large intestine, but it has to go uphill, right? It has to go up the ascending colon to the transverse colon to the descending colon. And what happens is this is supposed to be a one-way street. So the colon bacteria never goes into your small intestine, which is more of a lactobacilli and a little bit more sterile than that large intestine. But what happens in high levels of stress, the large intestine can actually begin to backfill, almost like a garbage disposal coming up into your sink. It allows that bacteria to go into your small intestine, reinfecting your small intestine with bacterial overgrowth that we call SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So you want to understand that this is all typically created by high levels of stress and inflammation. And so we want to be able to work on those. There's no doubt about it. I have many, many shows on how to overcome these digestive issues. I also have a course on this, a health results accelerator on this that we'll link up today at stevencabral.com/2090. But what I want to share with you is this: how does fasting then help with a lot of these issues? Here's why. Many people, due to stress or just poor meal timing, are eating and they're trying to fit all their meals into this small window of 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and they're having multiple meals within 3 to 5 hours. But what's happening is they're putting snacks or other meals of undigested food on top of partially digested food inside of the stomach. And what do you think is happening? Well, now you are slowing down that digestive process inside of the stomach, because now all of a sudden, all of this new food is coming in, and it's with partially digested food that's about to move out of the stomach, but all that gets held up. So what does it create? Bacterial fermentation. And your stomach starts to blow up like a balloon with all that gas inside of it. So that gas is creating bloating. It's pushing against your rib cage. It's pushing against your other organs. It's pushing down on your intestines, leaving you feeling very uncomfortable. So there's 2 ways that fasting can help. The first is that you want to space your meals, right? You want a meal time. I have a podcast on meal timing as well. All of these are completely free. I'll try to link that up at 2090 today as well. But you want to space your meals 3 to 5 hours apart. You really do. And most people need 2 to 4 meals per day. I'll let you decide that. I podcast again on why 3 meals is the right amount for most people to be able to get in the right amount of nutrients per day. But you really want to keep those 3 to 5 hours apart. And 3 hours is the bare minimum, and it better be an easy to digest meal. If it's a more complex meal, you really want to give your body 4 or 5 hours to not only allow for proper digestion through your stomach, but also allow for those blood sugar levels to drop back down as well. That's really important. And then what you want to do, and this is really the icing on the cake, is you want to give your whole digestive system 12 to 16 hours overnight to allow all of that food to move through these intestines as well. You need to give your body some downtime and your digestive system some downtime to not keep digesting more new food through the stomach and then through the intestine. I remember way back in the day, when I was doing natural bodybuilding, I was eating right before bed. What I didn't realize back then, it was affecting the quality of my sleep. It was also forcing me then before bed to have to break down. Typically for me, back then, bodybuilding-based routine, I would be eating a can of tuna, plus a cup of rice, plus a couple tablespoons of olive oil every single night. And that's what I was doing to gain weight, to put on muscle. I was in college, and that's what I wanted to do at the time and aspired to do at the time. And I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, but it certainly wasn't good for my health. It wasn't good for my digestive system. Wasn't good for my sleep or immune system. But what I'm sharing with you is this. Then I started the process over, right? So 3 hours, 4 hours to get that out of my stomach. Then it's moving through my intestines as well. It's not giving me a lot of time to be able to move all of this through and ease digestive stress. So if you're dealing with a lot of bloating and gas and digestive issues right now, I definitely recommend lab testing. There's no doubt about that. Bacteria and parasite stool test, and the Candida metabolic and vitamins test if you can. And of course, the food sensitivity test is a great one as well. I'll let you decide what is right for you. You can find those at stevencabral.com/labs. But just remember, there's 2 types of fasting. One is just in between meals, right? Giving your stomach a break. And then what you want to do is give your overall digestive system a break by stopping eating 3 hours to 4 hours before bed, and then going another 12 hours or so overnight before you have breakfast the next morning. I won't even get into the next morning. We'll talk about that. I know that I'm doing another digestive. This week is like a digestive podcast week. I'm excited to bring you more shows on digestion. So definitely tune in tomorrow. We're going to save that for tomorrow's show. So I'm going to talk tomorrow about bloating and gas versus food sensitivities, because there is a big difference. And then on Thursdays, I'm going to talk about leaky gut, intestinal permeabilities, and what it looks like on a food sensitivity test. So if you've ever had digestive issues, you want to learn more about them, honestly, how to fix them, that's what we're going to be talking about all week long. Hopefully this was helpful. If today's show was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. And before you go, I want to make sure that you know about the amazing giveaway over at Equalife. EqualLife is our virtual functional medicine practice where we help people all over the world. And we've been doing so since about 2017 when I began to slowly move my Boston-based practices online virtually so we can help more people through the power of the internet. So one of the things that we like to do on a weekly basis, as much as we can, we like to share with people a lot of our favorite products. And one of those products that the community has absolutely been loving are our new CBD gummies. These are 10 milligrams per gummy, and they're the only gummies that I know of, literally anywhere, that do not have any artificial colors, which means no artificial dyes, no paints in them, anything like that, and they have no artificial flavors. So they are the cleanest CBD gummy on the market, and they deliver 10 milligrams per gummy. Most adults will have 4 gummies at one time, and although you'll want to work with your health practitioner, if you have a child using cannabinoids as part of their protocol, they of course could start with a half or 1, and that is up to you, of course, as a parent. But we are giving away our watermelon flavored CBD gummies right now on all qualifying orders over at EqualLife. Of course, I think you should take advantage of this. It's an amazing product and it's absolutely free. So it's a great price. I believe they are it's a $49 value. Yours completely free. Head on over to stevencabral.com/EqualLife and you will be able to see this offer while supplies last. Again, it's stevencabral.com/EqualLife, and EqualLife is EQUILIFE. Take care.